throw out all the empties.
You don't want to recycle them?
Yes. Throw them away in the recycling bin.
Back in 1995, following the end of the LeBaron, Chrysler introduced a new coupe called the Sebring, named after the site of a famous endurance race in the Florida city of the same name. But although the name Sebring conjures up the image of a race car, the Sebring car was anything but, with a soft ride and far from sporty intentions. With the coupe based on a Mitsubishi, and a convertible added a year later based on existing Chrysler four-door sedans, it initially sold well and exported to Europe, including a short run in Russia. A four-door sedan was later added, and the ragtop would eventually become the top-selling ragtop in the U.S., thanks in part to its popularity in rental fleets. But by its questionably styled third generation, even with a folding hardtop option for the convertible, sales tanked, leading to its end by 2011. This is the story of the Chrysler Sebring. This is my old car.
You do know how to drive, right? Please, what moves can't drive the automobiles?
Oh, brother.
Never said I could drive it well.
Back in the late 1990s, I once had a neighbor who had retired from Chrysler, and he owned a first-generation Chrysler Sebring convertible. At the time, I had two young kids under the age of 6, so owning a convertible, even one with a decent-sized back seat like the Sebring, wasn't going to happen for me anytime soon. My neighbor definitely pushed me to consider getting it as my next car, but even if I didn't have little kids, I admittedly was turned off by one thing: its popularity. I prefer cars that you don't see everywhere else on the road, which makes mine a little more special. The Sebring, on the other hand, seemed to be everywhere. To his disappointment, I would wait until 2004 to get my first convertible, a then new second-generation Toyota Solara, as by then my kids were old enough to climb into the back seat on their own. Of course, I would then be asked many times if I was enjoying my midlife crisis, even though I had not yet turned 40. Unlike today, where new convertibles are nearly extinct, they were far more common in the 1990s, and the Sebring led the way. Although Chrysler had a good head start with the LeBaron.
Did you get the Volvo?
No, I decided to go with an '89 LeBaron.
A car which some of you had pointed out should have been included in my recent Weird Convertibles episode, since the LeBaron Coupe had not been originally designed to accommodate a convertible option.
Come on, put the top up. It's November. I feel alive, Jerry.
But the popularity of the Sebring convertible has probably made some of you not even realize there were once coupes and even sedan versions, and that the convertible and coupe were entirely different cars from one another, not just one being a chopped-up version of the other. Although the LeBaron name was clearly intended to invoke some sense of luxury,
Doesn't John Voight spell his name Jon?
the Sebring name may not have had the same effect, assuming you even knew what the name meant. Named after the city of Sebring in Florida, it is the home of a racetrack that opened in 1950, built on the site of a former airport. It was styled more like a European Grand Prix track, with lots of twists and turns, unlike the typical American oval tracks.
Look, they're making a left turn!
Its most famous event was, and still is, the annual 12 Hours of Sebring, and professional drivers often use this track in preparation for the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. Considering this kind of legacy, you would think that putting the name Sebring on a car would mean the car should feel right at home on a racetrack. Well, not really, as the Chrysler brand had traditionally been the parent company's luxury division. They probably considered the Sebring's European-style racetrack would add some cachet to the car, unlike the, let's just say, less sophisticated image one gets from a traditional American racetrack.
Oh, they're making another left turn!
Or maybe Chrysler execs just thought the name Sebring sounded classy, as I suspect most of the public back then had no idea there was any racetrack connection with the word Sebring.
I wonder what's going to happen next!
But what was far more odd about the Sebring was Chrysler's decision to build the coupe and convertible on two different platforms. And when I say different, I mean one designed by Chrysler and the other designed by Mitsubishi. The Sebring Coupe shared a platform with the second-generation Mitsubishi Eclipse, and was built alongside the Dodge Avenger, Eagle Talon, and Mitsubishi Galant at the Normal, Illinois plant, which itself was first built for the Diamond Star Motors collaboration between Chrysler and Mitsubishi. The Avenger was the closest in design to the Sebring, but the Sebring suspension was tuned more for comfort. But the Sebring also had Goodyear Eagle Performance tires, four-wheel double wishbone suspension, and variable speed rack and pinion steering. Up front on the coupe was a trapezoidal-shaped grille that was completely fake, as all airflow came in below the bumper. Initially, this fake grille had a crosshair design, another odd choice, at least to me at the time, since the crosshair design was a Dodge styling cue. By 1997, the Sebring had a new grille with the then-new Chrysler wing logo, and new body cladding, a common feature for lots of cars back then, especially at Chrysler. Under the hood, there was either the same inline 4 you can get in the Neon, or a Mitsubishi-designed V6. For the Sebring convertible, Chrysler started with their new JA compact sedan platform that underpinned the Chrysler Cirrus, Dodge Stratus, and Plymouth Breeze, often referred to as the Chrysler Cloud Cars, and they were built in Mexico. Because the Sebring convertible was a two-door versus four for the sedans, the Sebring's platform was renamed JX, which in turn was used for the trim designations of JX, JXI, and starting in 1998, the JXI Limited. Other than the Chrysler badging, the Sebring convertible didn't share much family resemblance with the coupe, and even had different dashboards between the two. The Sebring convertible is also sold in Europe, but not the Sebring coupe. Instead, the Cirrus sedan and Sebring convertible were both marketed in Europe as the Stratus, not Dodge,
I drive a Dodge Stratus!
but Chrysler. Following the end of the Plymouth brand, Chrysler revamped its lineup, dropping the Cirrus and replacing it with a new sedan version of the Sebring. They also dropped the Dodge Avenger, and in its place, expanded the Dodge Stratus line to offer both coupe and sedan. The Sebring Coupe and new Dodge Stratus Coupe were built on the Mitsubishi Eclipse platform, whereas the Sebring sedan and convertible were on Chrysler's new JR platform, along with the Dodge Stratus sedan. Unlike the first gen, where the styling between the coupe and convertible Sebring didn't match, this time they made more of an effort to make the front ends look more similar, including a functional grille in the lower portion of the bumper, unlike the fake grille the previous coupe had, and matching the look of the Chrysler Concorde full-size sedan. By 2004, the Sebring grille was redesigned, but again it looked the same across the coupe, sedan, and convertible, so it wasn't nearly as obvious on the outside that they weren't all on the same underlying platform. Engine power also improved, with a 2.4-liter inline-4 making 147 horsepower, and the 3-liter V6 making 200 horsepower. Still not exactly matching a typical Sebring race car specs, but an improvement nonetheless. The convertible, although still based on a sedan platform, had its torsional rigidity improved by over 40%, although this also made the car about 50 pounds heavier than the sedan. Chrysler also continued exports of the Sebring to Europe, although only the sedan and convertible. They were essentially the same cars as they were sold in North America, with only European required changes such as lighting, emission controls, and accommodating for the different shaped license plates. The smaller 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that was once used in the first-gen Sebring also continued as an option for Europe. This smaller engine option was to improve mileage, something far more important to European drivers, but no diesel version was available, which probably would have been more popular. Chrysler also did not develop a right-hand drive version of the Sebring, preventing any sales in the UK or Ireland. Although sales were below expectations in mainland Europe, it sold especially poor in France, so much so that imports to France ended in 2002. However, in 2006, Russian automaker GAZ paid over $150 million for licensing and retooling costs to allow the second-generation Sebring to be built there, but renamed the Volga Cyber. The first cars didn't leave the Russian plant until March of 2008, and thanks to the global recession, sales were far below expectations, leading to the Volga Cyber ending its production in 2010, after only around 9,000 were built. Back in North America, the second-generation Mitsubishi-based Sebring Coupe, along with its Dodge Stratus Coupe twin, were discontinued in 2005, although Chrysler had divested its ownership of Mitsubishi several years earlier. This effectively ended the joint partnership at the former DSM plant. Meanwhile, the second-gen sedan would continue into 2006, and the convertible into 2007. The third generation, now called the JS platform, would be the only one where all Sebrings were built on a common Chrysler design platform, now built in Sterling Heights, Michigan. The sedan began in 2006, offering for the first time a new 3.5-liter V6, with Chrysler's first 6-speed automatic transmission, with the auto stick to allow shifting without a clutch pedal. They also finally began offering a 2-liter turbo diesel for the European market, and also finally offered a right-hand drive model. Chrysler even tried an all-wheel drive version in 2008, but the extra cost and low sales made it only available that 1 year. Although the third-gen sedan had a similar roofline to the second-gen, the overall look seemed larger, especially up front with a taller hood that inherited the same hood strakes found on the Chrysler Crossfire. But the convertible's evolution was much more involved, as the convertible top was designed to allow for either a folding soft top or a folding hardtop. Although the hardtop required a rear hinged trunk lid to accommodate the entire roof structure to fit into the trunk, the soft top version kept the same trunk lid, even though the soft top didn't require as much space in the trunk when folded. Offering a folding hardtop was an ever-increasing fad for convertibles in the 2000s, but by this point, some of that allure had faded, since many disliked the loss of the trunk when the top was down. This may be why Chrysler opted to also offer a soft top, although this probably nearly doubled their design and development budget. Folding hardtops typically forced the car's rear proportions to take on a larger and less attractive shape, and although the Sebring probably did the best with what the platform could support, The large trunk lid cutouts required inevitably look odd, but the convertible did offer a neat party trick in that the top could be powered up or down from outside the car with the key fob, even when the car's ignition and engine were off. Although sales of both the sedan and convertible in the US were over 93,000 for 2007, they dropped to less than 28,000 just 2 years later. Some of that decrease, which was also occurring over the course of the second gen, was likely due to Chrysler's overuse of shiny but cheap-looking fake wood and plastic throughout the interior. The strakes on the hood were the source of many critics' dislike of the car, so much so that Chrysler smoothed out the hood for 2010, although that was too little too late. Of course, in the late 2000s, we were in the middle of a global recession, and Chrysler was in bankruptcy. But either way, Chrysler knew they had to make some significant changes. Although the Sebring's popularity in the fleet market helped Chrysler sell more cars, it ultimately hurt its desirability over time for private sales, as fewer and fewer people wanted to own something that screamed rental car. A huge factor for me as well, back during the Sebring's earlier generations. For 2011, Chrysler restyled the Sebring yet again, but now called it the 200, thereby eliminating a name that no longer provided the benefit it once did. Chrysler was still selling its larger 300 sedan, which itself was in its second generation, so presumably the thinking was that the buying public would consider the 200 to be a smaller and less expensive 300. The problem with that idea is that the 200 didn't have the 300's high beltline and angular styling that made it such a hit in its early days. The 200 had more rounded and generic styling, ironically looking more like a rental car, and had no common styling cues with the 300 at all. Combine that with an ever-increasing percentage of buyers that were opting for crossovers and SUVs, the 200 was facing an uphill battle from the start. Chrysler tried offering a higher performance trim called the Super S in 2014, but it was mostly cosmetic with few performance enhancements, and it failed to win over buyers. Although a second-gen 200 began in 2014 for the 2015 model year, only the sedan remained, leaving Chrysler with no convertible option since the 1980s. Although the sedan improved in overall looks and design, the decreasing sedan market share meant that Chrysler was already planning its demise just 1 year after the second gen began. Chrysler announced the 200 would end production at the end of 2016, with a shortened 2017 model year. This left the Chrysler brand with just one sedan, the 300, which, as we all know, limped along for a few more years before being canceled as well. Today, if you still own a Sebring or 200, in particular the folding hardtop version, let us know if you still love it as much as you did when it was new, and more importantly, if the top still works. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you once owned a car from the 70s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today, and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments, or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time.
There, now you may throw it out.
Wow. How many filet-o-fishes did you eat?
That's over several months, Ryan.